Yes, he is your St. Louis County executive. He's Steve Stenger, and he joins us now via the phone. Good morning, County Executive Steve Stenger.
Good morning, McGraw. How are you doing?
Well, you know, I'm a little offended by you. Your brother's been on the show more than you have since you have ascended to the top spot, you know.
Hey, I was thinking the same thing as I was sitting here on hold. I was thinking, why have I not been on McGraw's show? I don't even understand it.
Yes.
I want to be on more.
So who are you blaming? Are you throwing your PR people under the bus now?
I would never throw anybody under the bus, but I would like to be on your show more. I loved being on it before, and I'd love to be on it more.
You were in,
I mean that.
You were in studio when I was here last year.
Yeah. Because I was either getting a complex or I was thinking you were small timing me or something.
No way. Oh, no way. I'd love to be on.
All right, good. Now,
hey, I asked to be on this time.
That is true because either our postcards are getting lost in the mail or I don't know what's going on. So we will certainly make a effort to reach out to you more.
Thank you.
You got it. So the big news, I guess, this week is one of the things I guess you want to talk about is this Chesterfield soccer complex, which was in the works as you were not necessarily the county executive. Now that you are, it seems like you have put the kibosh on this, and they have announced that they're going to Belleville. What's going on?
Well, you know, it's nothing that I put the kibosh on. It's a situation where we have a private developer who wants to develop some soccer fields in Chesterfield. And they came to St. Louis County, and once again, a private developer, not a public entity like the government or something along those lines, or a not-for-profit. These guys are operating their business for profit, and they've come to St. Louis County and said, quite literally, please give us $2 million, and if you don't give us $2 million, we're going to go elsewhere with our project. Now they're saying they're going to go to Belleville, and I guess I should back up just a little bit and say I don't think they're saying it's either Chesterfield or Belleville. I think they're saying we won't do the Chesterfield deal unless you give us $2 million. And we really, as a government, we're not angel investors. We're not anything like that. We're not an investor club. We don't have a means to just write someone a $2 million check from our general fund. We have incentives that can be available, like TIFs. Sometimes we do tax abatement if you can prove that you're going to bring in X number of jobs. And then, of course, you have to meet that commitment, and you have to bring in those jobs, or the tax abatement can disappear. But they've done none of those things. They haven't gone through any processes. They've just merely asked for $2 million, and we really can't just write them a check for $2 million.
So they've announced that they're going to Belleville. It sounds like they're playing a no, we're really going to go to Belleville game, right? I mean, it almost sounds like they're at the door with their hand on the doorknob saying, no, we're really going to go to Belleville if you don't give us the money.
And I have to tell you, I'd love to see them in St. Louis County. I mean, we have supported other soccer facilities throughout St. Louis County. We've urged them to conduct their business and make life better for our residents. But it's not a situation where we can write a check out of taxpayer money for a private group that is just basically coming to us and saying, we're leaving if you don't write us a check for $2 million. I don't think we've ever done that in St. Louis County. I think it's unprecedented.
Steve,
it's not something I can start now.
What's the incentive to go to Belleville? What's Belleville giving them?
I really couldn't tell you, but Belleville may have, and I don't know anything about their deal that they have with Belleville. Belleville may have a program where, like I said, you could have tax increment financing. They might have some kind of tax abatement for a promise of jobs. They've done none of that here. They've gone through none of those processes for us to even evaluate whether they would be eligible for some type of program for us. And you hear about incentives in various locations around the country and throughout, even our own region. But none of those incentives involve writing a check out of our general fund, any amount of money to a company to get them to remain here. And we're in negotiations all the time with companies. I met with a company earlier this week that is looking for some incentives to stay. And we do that type of thing. We're very happy to do that. It's part of our economic development plan. But there's always a promise that goes along with that and some assurances that the company is going to bring jobs, or they're going to develop some form of an asset for St. Louis County that St. Louis County has available to it, and our taxpayers have something available to them in the case that the company might not make it. They might not be successful.
Steve Stenger with us, St. Louis County Executive, for a couple more minutes. We'll stay on this topic because this is one of the rare times where a governmental entity is actually standing up and saying no. And I don't know if it's a city or a county deal because government can be sort of fickle and sort of strange to understand. But putting it into a larger context, Steve Stenger, right behind my shoulder here in Clayton, they're getting all sorts of subsidies to build a luxury high-rise condo. A lot of people say, why do you need subsidies to build a high-rise condo? We have subsidies. You mentioned TIFs. We give the biggest company in the world like Walmart and those developers TIFs to bring in big box stores to put existing small companies out of business. So why is it that we're putting a line in the sand with this, and yet these governmental entities trip over themselves to give all these people money?
Well, in the case that you're talking about, that's a city project and not a county project. So we don't have anything to do with that one. But I can tell you my thinking in general on these types of things. I think that when you start talking about TIFs and you start talking about incentives, you have to be really, really careful about what you do. And at the end of the day, you have to review every deal for what is the return to taxpayers and what's the return to taxpayers at every level. There's different taxing jurisdictions that apply. There's school districts, there's fire districts, there's all types of taxing jurisdictions. So you really have to look and see, is it a good deal for taxpayers? And I mean this from the heart. That's what I'm doing here. This is not a good deal for taxpayers to write a $2 million check to a company that we have no assurances will return anything to St. Louis County. They've gone through no process. At least in the case of a TIF, you have a commission that meets, that reviews it, that looks it over, and tries to make a determination of whether it's going to be in taxpayers' best interest to do this. In this case, they haven't gone through any process like that. McGraw, they have literally come to me and come to the council and asked us for $2 million. And, in the future, St. Louis County may improve its parks. And in this case, we had the option of improving some of our parks or providing, basically giving this money to this entity. And we chose to improve our parks, and they related to soccer. There were fields that needed to be replaced. There were parking lots that needed to be replaced. There were pieces of infrastructure that needed to be rebuilt in some of our parks. And we invested in those parks for St. Louis County taxpayers. St. Louis County taxpayers are free to use those parks. If the county wanted to, it could rent those parks out. It could sell, it could sell whatever it wants. It owns it,
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis County would own those facilities and could do whatever St. Louis Countyans wanted to do with those facilities. But in this case, it's a private developer who just wants $2 million to be given to it. And that's not a situation that I think any taxpayer would be happy with. And I'm not doing it because I don't want to receive complaints. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. But I will tell you that if I did do it, I would be receiving a lot of calls, I think. And it would be rightfully so. People would have a real reason to be angry.
While we have you in the larger context of taxpayer money and building things and jobs and everything else, the St. Louis Rams have been a major topic of conversation. The governor has come out and said that he's not going to ask the county for any money, any of the tax money, and he's leaving the county out of it. What can you tell us? Have you had any conversations with the governor about the Rams' new stadium, and or what can you shed some light on what's going on behind the scenes since the county's out of it?
Sure. I had met with the governor. I think it was back in April that this all sort of surfaced. And we were talking about the pros and cons of the deal. And one of the things that I had mentioned is that in St. Louis County, I believe it's necessary that we have a vote of the people when we're considering any new money for a stadium. And in fact, we have a charter amendment that calls for a vote of the people. And I think that in the interest of the deal, I think that rather than go through that process, I think they chose to sort of skip over St. Louis County with respect to the financing because we do have that requirement and because I had mentioned that was something that was very important to me, that we have a vote. And so that's where we are right now. And I think that they've chosen to move forward in the deal without St. Louis County being part of that financing. And I'm supportive of it. I hope that they're able to put that together, and I will support it in any way that I can. We also support the Edward Jones Dome under a previous agreement, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll look and see what the needs are in the Edward Jones Dome as well. as time goes on.
Just so I understand you, when you met with the governor, he didn't think you needed to go to a vote. You did think you needed to go to a vote, and so therefore he said, okay, never mind, we just won't bother with you.
I don't know that he said it quite that way. I think what he was basically saying is that the vote in St. Louis County that I was saying we needed causes certain, if you talk about having an election, you talk about putting it on the ballot, I don't think that really met in their time frame. I will say, philosophically, I don't believe that he was opposed to a vote, but I think what he was saying was for the best interest of the deal, from the perspective of timing, having an election, putting all that together, would cause, I think, some real problems for the timeline of that deal, and I think they need their financing in place much quicker than that. So I think
do you agree with that?
Is real reason.
We got to run. Steve Stenger, St. Louis County Executive, and you were the one pushing for it. You said that's very nice, but you would have to go with a public vote no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is a situation where a public vote is absolutely necessary, and I am not going to move St. Louis County forward in that direction without a public vote. We have to have it. It's millions upon millions of dollars. It's quite literally almost $200 million.
Steve Stenger, St. Louis County Executive. All right, so I will not be slighted that you were small-timing me. I'll just say you were getting the furniture set up in the new office, and we will enjoy your company much, much more often going forward.
I'm in next week if you want me.
Well, I'm out next week, so don't worry about it.
I think he knew that.
I'm on vacation.
All right. Aaron, nice talking to you again, too.
Same here, Steve.
Steve Stenger, St. Louis County Executive. Steve Stenger, thanks for joining us. 7:31 here. Big